Welcome back to Horns High Studios for another episode of 666 Seconds of Murder. That means each one of these videos is less than 666 seconds or 11 minutes and 6 seconds. So let's not mess around. Let's get right to it. Now, don't forget to like this video, drop a comment below. It helps the video get out there to a lot more people. And if you're not a subscriber, please consider doing that before you're done. Appreciate that very much. It helps the channel grow. Now, it's important to remember that this video is for informational purposes only. These are just my opinions and speculation. I'm not an expert. I'm just using some good common sense here. So I'm not saying anyone's guilty of anything, and everything I say is alleged. Now, for this episode, I'd like to talk about a follow-up to a video I did last weekend about Maddie's boyfriend, Jake Schriger. Now, when I did that video, I was just doing like a cursory glance into his story because I didn't really know much about him at all. And it looks like I wasn't alone because a lot of you didn't know anything about him either. But in all the people we know of this case, Jake was the one that I barely heard mentioned at all. I found that very strange. But in a case of dozens of strange things, I put this one on the burner for a little while. So I asked you guys to share any information that you had about Jake that you knew so I could educate myself on the story. And like I've said before, when it comes to Jack Decor, the partner or the ex-partner of a victim is always number one on the list. Always. So I wondered why Jake's name was just never really given the same scrutiny as Jack's. I know he was out of town, and we're going to get to that. So the main reason was the fact that he was out of town that weekend. And, obviously that gives him somewhat of an alibi. He's rumored to be back in Coeur d'Alene with his family, and many of you commented, said he had already graduated the University of Idaho with a degree in marketing. But I'm not 100% sure he was graduated, but if not, he was getting ready to. He's also got some family, I believe, in the Boise area, and I heard that he and Maddie spent a summer there. So, still not 100% certain on this because a lot of these things I'm hearing about him are rumor, and I don't want to just, run with total rumor. So I'm trying to explain that there's still a lot of unknowns here, but I'm trying to paint more of a picture of Jake because a lot of you wanted to know more. Now, one thing I heard from a couple of you in the comments is that there was an interview with Christy Gonzalez where she mentioned that Maddie had bought a house. And that seemed very odd to me. I mean, why would someone buy a house before they graduated college unless she had a job set up? I knew she was getting ready to graduate as well. But I mean, unless she knew where she was going to end up, it just seems kind of strange to buy a house at that age. So are the rumors of what the King Road house was being used for true? Is that the reason why they had a dozen or more bank accounts? I mean, it's very possible, right? I was also incorrect in saying that Jake Schriger was a member of Sigma Chi. He was not. He was a member of Delta Tau Delta. And as we know, the frats there at Moscow seem to intermingle quite a bit. So I have a tendency to think they all had some sort of hand or knowledge of what was going on here. I mean, even if he just kind of knew something was going to happen and kept it quiet, that's really messed up on so many levels. And I'm not saying Jake was a part of this, but the fact that he was a member of the frats there in Moscow definitely is concerning to me. Now, I had a listener contact me by email and asked to remain anonymous. She provided me with a link to an article in the Spokesman Review out of Spokane, Washington from March of 2011. And it was a stabbing incident at Woodlands Middle School in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And the victim was an 8th grader that was attacked by a fellow student in his chest, arm, and shoulder, but thankfully survived. And oddly, This is where Jake Schriger and one of his siblings went to school, and both were present at the school that day. Their mother, Stacy Schriger, is actually quoted in the article as she stood outside with the other parents. Now, in another odd coincidence, in that interview with her, she brought up that the family had lived 15 minutes from Columbine High School in 1999 when the mass violence took place. How bizarre is that? To be part of the story involving 3 completely separate acts of violence in or around schools, and all by the age of what, like 22, 23? How crazy is that? Now, I'll link to the article in the description below if you want to read it. It's interesting. Now, I hope this guy's in some kind of therapy, because that's just weird, being somewhat part of the story in 3 separate incidents like that. Kind of crazy. I mean, Columbine and Idaho 4 are huge events. The stabbing incident at the school, while it's serious, is certainly not on the level of either of those two. It is just very odd to me. Now, I did see someone mention that Jake was jealous of the attention that Maddie played on Kaylee. And, was Maddie going to move to Texas with her? Now, I hadn't heard that, so I really wasn't sure. But I've also heard several other things about Jake and Maddie's relationship that I'm not going to address here because it's pure rumor and it's really unnecessary. But if Maddie did buy a house somewhere else, maybe Jake was in the same situation as Jack Decor. Maybe he was upset she was moving on and leaving him behind. They had only been dating a year, so that does seem a little dramatic, but it sounds like his mom really liked her and they had a good rapport, so maybe things had moved fast. I don't know. But if he and Jack had been talking about this and they both felt the same way, you know what they say about misery loving company. Now, if Jake did go home to Coeur d'Alene, that would mean he was like 90 minutes away from Moscow. So it's entirely possible for him to return for something like that and then go back up there and claim he was there the whole time. I've only heard rumors about some of these issues with Jake and Maddie and, their relationship. And beyond that, I've heard really nothing more. But the fact that he was gone that weekend does deserve a raised eyebrow. I mean, the fact that happened on that weekend, I mean, of course, anything's possible, but it does make you wonder. And that he allegedly had Jack Showalter keeping an eye on Maddie and Kaylee that night. That seems a little creepy. Was he obsessed with her? Or was he just hearing some rumblings of something going on and he was trying to protect her? Who knows, right? Now, the fact that Jake was good friends with Jack Showalter is a little bit worrisome. I mean, Jack Showalter has allegedly done some pretty off-the-wall stuff, leaving animal carcasses on the porches of the other frats and sororities. So, I mean, that's just really weird. So what does that say about Jake Schriger if he's hanging out with some dude like that? I don't know. Now, thank you to all the commenters and the viewer that reached out by email. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate that. I could have done a longer video with this, but again, a lot of it was very much based in rumor, and I didn't want to go too off the rails with that stuff. But I also got to keep it 666 seconds or less. You guys know that. But there are a few odd things about Jake, and I wanted to pass that on. And these coincidences of him being so close to 3 separate acts of violence in schools is definitely another one of those weird coincidences in this case. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to get your input. Now, don't miss my live on this channel today. That's Sunday, April 28th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Central. I'm going to be on with A.R. Hayes. It's going to be awesome. We're talking Idaho 4. We got some big news we're going to lay down. We're going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff, and we're going to be giving away some good prizes too. So you don't want to miss it today, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Central, right here on this channel. So I want to say thank you to all my friends at the Horns High Club. You guys are amazing. I really, really appreciate that support. And I also appreciate every single one of you that watch these videos. And we'll see you next time for another episode of 666 Seconds of Murder.